At some point before I do this broadcast and hit the record button, I'm going to stop myself and say, don't do that. Don't say this is the week that Georgia is finally going to be tested, and this is the week where it's going to go down to the wire, and that another team's going to walk on into Athens and find a way to end a winning streak. Because it's not happening unless it's Nick Saban and Alabama, and the only time that you'll face off against them is in Atlanta for an SEC championship, which, again, spoiler alert, here we are. If you're brand new here, welcome on into the channel. My name is Cole Thompson. I'm a radio show host based in Houston, and I talk college football daily. I talk NFL, MLB, NHL, NBA, but I love talking college football. And if this is the type of content you enjoy, this, my friends, is the channel made for you. So hit the subscribe button down below, leave a comment telling me your thoughts on the ass whooping of a lifetime that was literally going on between the hedges. Georgia 52, Ole Miss 17. Tell your friends, your family, your sister, your brother, everybody about this channel. And as always, let's continue to talk college football. Georgia pummeled Ole Miss into the ground. And I mean that almost mentally. I mean that almost literally, because by the time the game was over, Jackson Dart was no longer in the starting lineup. He had left the game with a shoulder injury. And even though he was cleared to come back in, Lane Kiffin said, no, it's over. We're basically waving the white flag. That's not the point here. The point is that there was a moment right after Quinshon Judkins scored his second touchdown where you saw kind of a light go off on the Georgia sideline and go, oh, it's going to be one of those days where we'll have the Twitter warriors and we'll have the national narrative and we'll have analysts come out of nowhere and they'll pick their head out like Homer Simpson coming through the yard, and they'll be like, this is the game. This is the game where we're going to see a battle-tested Ole Miss team take on Georgia. I fell for the trap. A lot of people fell for the trap. And unfortunately, that didn't happen. It was 14-14 with a minute into the second quarter. And by the time that the game was over, it was a 38-3 run in favor of the Bulldogs. They dismantled, they thwarted, they throttled, they basically disheveled Ole Miss's opportunities to score, to get out of their own territory. This was a clinic of a performance defensively. That's the biggest takeaway I have when it comes to the Ole Miss side of things. And Lane Kiffin said afterwards, you know what, we'll get back to that in a minute. Georgia right now is kind of like a sequel. And what I mean by that is the sequel premise of the original movie is usually the same. You get the main characters and a few different names, but mostly the same storyline, plot structure, and finale. Every single year, this is what Georgia does. They start off slow. They find a way to gain momentum really after their bye week. And then by the time November comes around, they look unbeatable. They seem to be the team that is going to hoist up another national title. And it's a testament to Kirby Smart. And it is a huge pat on the back to his roster and his staff. And also just the work ethic of the players inside that locker room. That's a part that always, I think, gets lost in translation. Like, it's one thing to be able to have a great culture when you have the leader of the pack setting the tone. And that's exactly what you see every Saturday when Kirby Smart takes the field. And it's because he is a Bulldog, and it's because he understands what the Bulldog culture is all about and how they demand excellence. But that's neither here nor there. It translates down to your players and those in the locker room and those who are basically second stringers and those who are third stringers that really want to work against those starters and prove, hey, if I can be good enough to play against you, you should be good enough to play against everybody. And that's kind of the metric of what we have. Carson Beck is not human. That's the only thing I could say. I'm not calling him an alien. I'm not saying that he is perfect, because if he isn't, but there's supposed to be a moment where he comes crashing back down to reality, where the 300-yard games are no longer happening. There's going to be a moment where he sees a little bit of a slip up, an interception. How do you respond to it? A turnover inside the red zone, a pick six that ends up tying the game. That's supposed to happen. And it hasn't. And I don't know if it will. You look at the last two games, Tennessee and then Georgia Tech. I think that in both those instances, he's going to have yet another career day, just like he did here. Over 300 passing yards. He had another passing touchdown. One interception, which if you watch the game itself, that was a moment where Dominic Lovett probably should have brought that in. I don't count that on the quarterback. And sometimes that's why I hate the interception totals, because it's not always telling the truth. He's a machine. He's clicking. And more specifically, You see the way he puts in the work throughout the week. That way, when he has those mental mistakes, which are few and far between, they don't rattle him enough to make it a second time or a third time. And slowly but surely, once again, here we are watching them march into the red zone. Quick, in, out, done. That was it. The rushing attack, phenomenal. Phenomenal. Kendall Milton, 127 yards, 14.1 yards per play. Dejon Edwards, red zone machine. Nobody was stopping him. It was literally like he was going between the hedges into the end zone for 6 points. And then you have another performance where everybody in the passing attack is finding a way to make momentum. Lon McConkey's on the field. Guess what? He's finding his way to pick up first downs. You get back Brock Bowers, and we'll get to him in a minute. He's finding his way into the end zone. Only a couple grabs, but hell, 3 catches, 34 yards, a touchdown. You'll take that 7 days of the week and twice on Saturdays. Dominic Lovett, 77 yards. Ra Thomas, big 44-yard catch. Marcus Rosemary-Jacsaint, 1 catch, 22 yards. Oscar Dope, 1 catch, 9 yards. Lawson Lucky, 1 catch, 5 yards. This is where we are as a team. They're just fundamentally not flawed. They just seem to have just this momentum and this power and this surge that is clicking every single time. And Brock Bowers, let's just talk about him for a quick second, if we will. The man doesn't have to play another game in college football if he sees fit. He's a first-round pick. He is a top 10 player in this year's draft class. He's going to make millions of dollars whenever he decides to go pro, which will be at the end of this year. He is going to hopefully be what Kyle Pitts was supposed to turn out into during his time in Atlanta. And he still played 27 days after getting a major injury, undergoing surgery. Most people would be in a wheelchair. You, me, my neighbors, my wife, we'd be in a wheelchair still, or we would just be going through rehabilitation at this point. Nope, he's back on the field. He's running routes. He is finding ways to get open, and he's bulldozing defensive players into the ground on his way to picking up a first down or 6 points. That's Brock Bowers. And that's kind of a testament to his work ethic. That's a testament to what's been implied in Athens and kind of the mantra that I think a lot of Bulldogs carry themselves with. They always have had players stand out. This is a team where I think that they realize what's at stake, what type of history could be made, and they're not going to let that happen. They're not going to allow anybody to take that away from them. The only way that they are going to not see their name alongside Minnesota back in the 1930s is if they play a perfect performance and somebody on that Saturday or that Monday afternoon or that Monday evening in Houston is a little bit better. And even then, I'm not sure if it's good enough. I'm not. The way that Carson Beck has been playing, it deserves Heisman conversation. He won't get it. He deserves an invite, I think, to New York City without question. The way the run game is able to basically take over and tell everybody, no, I got this. No, don't worry. We don't need to throw 40 times a game. We could, but we don't need to. Like, this was a team that finished with over 300 passing yards. This was a team that finished with over 300 rushing yards. And this was a team that found the end zone 7 different occasions. There's really not much else you have to say. Defensively, the fact that you were able to take away Trey Harris was monumental, just like what you did against Luther Burden. You forced Jackson Dart to go to his other receivers, and at that point, it was kind of game over. You made this offense one-dimensional, and you're playing like the best team in college football. I don't care what the college football playoff rankings say. I don't care what the AP poll rankings say. I care what I see on the field. And what my eyes tell me is that that version of Georgia looks unbeatable. It looks unbeatable on the road. It looks unbeatable in a neutral site location. Hello, Jacksonville. You forgot about that one. It looks unbeatable at home. And as long as they continue to carve this pathway, they are on their way to making history. This is a Georgia team that means business. And then for Ole Miss, I won't spend a lot of time on this. They understand, and Lane Kiffin is probably the mouthpiece of what is truly felt inside that community. Good team, solid team, probably going to be a factor when it comes to winning in the SEC with the college football playoff expanding to 12 teams. But that's it. That's it. Kiffin said post-game, we need to recruit better. It's not just us, we need to coach better. We need to add in better players. And he's not wrong. The level of talent that separates a team like Georgia and a team like Ole Miss is staggering. And another thing that's really important is that you watch the way that Ole Miss gets a lot of these players. It's through the transfer portal. And they're here for a year or two at most, and then they go pro, and they're relearning a brand new system. When at Georgia, they stick, they stay, they grow, they develop, they harness in all of that inertia, and then they are a fundamentally sound machine that is clicking on all cylinders. All the bells and whistles are blowing at the right time, and lo and behold, here we are. That's what this game is about. That's what I saw on Saturday, was two teams that are good, one team that is close to being elite as they come in college football. And in large part, it's due to the culture and it's due to the buy-in from the jump. That's really where we are. I think Ole Miss is a very good team. I think Ole Miss absolutely still deserves consideration to be a New Year's Six bowl team. And they very well could if somehow, some way, you see Missouri find a loss along the schedule, or if just the way that the college football playoff pans out, they end up being one of the top teams to where they're bowl eligible and they're good enough to be in that conversation. But we know who these two teams are. Georgia right now has hit a new ignition. You know that song Remix to Ignition? That's kind of what this is. They hit a new ignition. Brock Bowers isn't a human alien. What he is he's a live representation of the million dollar man. They basically rebuilt him in a factory, and he had a week to kind of get his stuff together. Oh, look at that. Now he's back on the track, and he's absolutely terrorizing people. And they're on a warpath through Atlanta, through wherever they play in the first round of the college football playoff, and to Houston to guarantee that they are a three-peat champion, the first since Minnesota in the 1930s. That's the team that took the field on Saturday night. That's the team that looks like they are nowhere near close to slowing down. And that's the team that you need to worry about if you have to face off against them in the playoffs. I'm sorry for doubting them. And for those of you that watch the show and have already called me out on my other videos, you're right. I was wrong. And at some point, that up there, I'll probably listen to it before I hit the record button, because once again, thought it was going to be a test. The only test was my mental capacity of not understanding how this Georgia team is so damn good. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching that video. Don't hit the X button yet. Make sure you hit subscribe to keep up with all of our daily content found on Just Saying It and anything else that we post on this channel. Bye.